Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the FRS. It is Division 2 here in Season 8. Getting close to the halfway point of the season, Round 4, we're visiting Portimao in Portugal. Here is that circuit, 4.6 kilometers around, 15 corners to navigate, 2 DRS zones. The main action zone, of course, being down that pit straight, but then another one down into turn 5. A lot of time lost in the pits, but the Algarve circuit returns this season for its third overall appearance in the FRS. It was back last season as well, and we had a bit of a moment there. But action zones, the complex opening, turns 1 through 3. Of course, you get down the DRS zone of the big pit straight. Not a heavy braking zone into turn 1, but then you sweep through turn 2 and into the sharp hairpin of turn 3. The battles will continue. Then you sweep up the hill to turn 4, and then down another DRS straight into the hairpin that is turn 5. Another late braking, overtaking opportunity. And as you exit up the hill, you may be able to get a run on the cars ahead. The soft, medium, and hard compound tires, as always, on offer. The medium's only about 0.4 of a second slower per lap. The hard's about 0.8 of a second slower per lap. And in this 33-lap race today, the softs will do 16, the medium's about 23, the hard's about 27, so there's some life in there, and the soft-medium strategy is very much on offer to see what people will go after in this one. But let's take a moment to have a little gander and a look at the championship standings, which will pop up in just a moment, to see how the season is shaping up. Of course, Franstuff with a dominant win last week out puts him P2 in the championship behind Spen and jumps ahead of Gali, that win being the tiebreaker. We've dropped down to 4th as a result of Franstuff and Franstuff moving up on us. Madsta rounds out the top 5, but importantly, the 2 Alpines, Spen and Gali, not on the grid today. So let's hop out onto the circuit. A little cloudy and overcast, but dry forecasting ready. So opening up the DRS as we head down the pit straight, down this big old embankment, on the brakes, a little dab down to 5th gear into turn 1. Turn 2 is this little full flat out right-handed kick, and then turn 3, brake, get the car rotated, try and get on the power as much as you dare up this hill. The back end goes so light as you crest it, it's very easy to have a mistake made. Now down the hill into turn 5 after that second DRS zone, this hairpin very sharp, got to get the car rotated, but accelerating up the hill, you can get the power down a little bit earlier because more weight sits on those rear tires. High-speed right-hander sweeps in, then you're braking for this next uphill section. The back end loves to try and swap on you, so ease on the throttle until it's fully settled. Sweep down the hill, hang this left-hander, and then on this blind riser, second little hump in the hill is where the braking zone is. It's a very difficult one to get just right with no racing line enabled. Another big sweep down the hill, sweeping back up into this tight left-hander. Not much of an overtaking opportunity. You have to really do some work in the previous corners, and then a clumsy little right-hander that widens out, has a little short shoot, and the final turn of the circuit. Flat out as you go over this rise into this valley, and then straighten out to go to the finish line. Once you hit the top of the plateau, open up that DRS and cross the line. 18.252, not the most competitive lap time that we could have set with our first run of the day, but we are still just kind of feeling it out. So jumping out, ready to start our last flying lap. We only went for 2 flying laps because we wanted to save a set of soft tires for the race. P11, small grid today. We are P last in our lap time with that 18.2, trying to find some kind of improvement. Down through turn 1, a little clip of the inside curbing. That upsets the car. You can see how much time we lost coming through there. A little bit better of an exit out of turn 3, coming up the hill through turn 4. But ultimately, we are going to cross the first sector split down on our previous best lap by just a couple hundredths of a second. So we're going to see if we can make up some time later in the lap, but really needed a very good first sector in order to try and make up too much ground, as the rest of the lap wasn't terrible the first time by. There was definitely some time to be made. You can see getting on the throttle a little better at the top of the hill. The sun of course, starting to come out in this one as well. So the threat of rain very much staved off through this awkward double right-hander. We're up about 3.5 of a second. Find the braking zone for this, and a big rear lockup, so trying to keep the back end of the car under control, and it got a little away from us. Caused us to go a little bit wide on the entry to the last braking zone. We've lost about 0.5 of a second because of it, and we are going to try and just short line the finish as much as possible, but We are going to find about 0.3 of improvement, but it's not enough to move us off of the bottom. So we will be starting this race from the very back in this one. A Dog takes a massive pole position, a 16.715, ahead of Fran Stuff, who's on a 16.9. Ipswich, Madsta, Sienna Bob, Robin, Mittens for Kittens, Pathman, Onyx, Zhao, and myself making up the grid today. Very small turnout for Division 2. Not ideal, but does put us in a position to not have to work too hard to get towards the higher point scoring positions. My qualifying wasn't great. I was coming in already feeling decently confident on race pace, but here we are. The 5 red lights up. We're opting to start on the medium tires. A medium soft strategy is what I had in my head to start this one. So decent run off the line, but it's kind of a messy turn 1. We lift out very early, and you can see Zhao diving up the inside. Gets Mittens for Kittens a little context, so now we're going to go ahead and accelerate, get up the inside of the Ferrari, and try and just pick our way through the chaos that is going on ahead of us. And it's up 1 position already, so a decent run. Now we're going to have a look at the hairpin down at turn 5 as it can get very messy. A little bit of a lockup, it looks like, from Pathaman. Not a great exit for Zhao because of it. So we are able to put on the overtake, get past Zhao, and now we are up into 9th. Now having a little look around the outside of Pathman. Sideways, the Red Bull of Sienna Bob, and we have to dodge off the circuit, and that does cost us a couple of positions. So we get shuffled right back down to 10th, but lucky to avoid that. Looking at it and going frame by frame in some of the editing, it was very, very close to a crash there. Nearly could have had front wing damage on the first lap, but was able to avoid it, and now get the gravel cleaned off the tires. It takes a couple of corners for them to get back up to full grip. And now we will get back underway, setting off after the cars ahead. We are going to have to burn some more battery than I wanted to, just to try and get ourselves into an ideal position. I want to try and make up positions early, especially on these other medium tire runners like Mittens and Zhao, because I do know that from testing, the soft tires on high fuel loads die off pretty quickly. But you can see we're already getting back onto the gearbox of Mittens for Kittens. Our race pace was pretty decent. I mean, wasn't the best of anybody, definitely not with the top leaders, but race pace was decent. Having a little look to the inside on the hairpin, not going to make the move stick there. He's gone a bit wide, so we're going to try and tuck in, but not really enough of a run to make a move up here into this right-hander, which is always a tricky spot to get the job done. Really need the momentum out of the hairpin. But we will have DRS enabled next lap, so we won't get it down the pit straight this time, but our next run into turn 5, we will get it. We are close enough to the back of Mittens as there's a big moment as there's some wheel spin at the top of the hill. I have to be very careful on throttle application there. But we are fairly close to Mittens and Zhao. Even without the DRS down the pit straight, I should get a pretty hefty slipstream, and I actually get a very good exit compared to Mittens. So I'm already switching on the overtake button. Gonna tuck into the slipstream, pull to the inside, and make sure we get fully ahead of him by the time we get to the braking zone of turn 1. So we're gonna tuck into the slipstream of Zhao. Had a thought of maybe just pinning the DRS or ERS and going for a double move, but was smarter to just settle in. We are gonna get a little bit of DRS assistance down into turn 5. If we can get the kind of exit that we want, which it doesn't look like we quite did. Zhao a little better on the power. Just a little look to the inside to see what the track looks like ahead, and very late on the brakes as Mittens behind us actually has to kind of go wide to avoid, as we had to brake early with Zhao in front of us. And I spent a fair bit of time with looking in my mirrors in this race as people were kind of coming up behind as these trains form, especially into that hairpin. You get kind of some people get kind of fixated on the racing line assist, which most drivers run, which I think hurts your racecraft a little bit, but such is life. But so it does affect there. So now we've got Zhao in our sights. We do have DRS. He is just outside the DRS range of Pathaman and Onyx, who are battling just ahead of us. So we should be able to kind of hop in and leapfrog. And we do need to kind of work on saving our tires a little bit. The running in the dirty air of everybody else, you can see the temperatures spiking up. Once you get over 102, 103 on the mediums, they really lose out on some grip. So trying to manage those, keep them in the right temperature window was very important in this race. A little bit of rear locking on the way into turn 3, and that is something, like most races, you have to make adjustments. So we're going to jump ahead now a little bit. Lap 6 of 33, Onyx and Pathaman battling. Pathaman having to take a tight line through the hairpin. We get a very good run, so we go for the overtake, use the battery to make sure we're fully clear before that right-hand kink, and that puts us right on the back of Onyx now. As we're pretty even as far as tire performance goes between the softs and the mediums. I think the softs were still slightly better than the mediums, but considering I was confident in my race pace, I had a little better race pace than these guys. I was able to start making up the gap, but we will be on the back of Onyx in the DRS zone. ERS recharging around here, the battery charge rate, very tough around here. You only get probably about 4 to 5% per lap if you don't use any overtake. So having to make all these moves was costing me a lot of battery. I typically try and not go below 10% in any situation except for the last lap, but I was just having to do it to get ahead, and I'm going to have to burn some battery once again down the next DRS straight, because Onyx is on those decently good tires, and if I'm going to defend, I'm going to have to use some battery. So battery switches on. He's going to have the DRS. He's got a good run. I'm staying on the racing line. He goes for the very late dive. I just kind of have to leave him space. He just kind of runs me out of room on the track. I had to kind of go wide. I was understeering a little bit already. I tried to use a little bit of battery to maybe fight back, but in the end, I decide, nope, let's just back out, let him take the apex of that right-hander, and we'll re-attack and get after him again. It is costing me some gap to the top 5, which Robin is there about 3.9 seconds out, and I wanted to get these moves done nice and clean. As you can see how much earlier I'm having to brake and lift with Onyx in front of me, as he's very much struggling on overall grip levels, even though he's competitive in a straight line. Through this twisty bit, you can see we've gone from 3.9 seconds back of Robin to 4.5 seconds back in just 3 corners. So it was definitely costing me a fair chunk of time. I've got another good run down the pit straight. We're going to open the DRS this time, trying to save a little bit more battery on the way in to try and deploy a little more into the hairpin. We don't quite get fully clear enough to take the racing line, so it does compromise our turn 1. We do have to leave that car width on the outside. But he has a bit of a wide run through the hairpin, and I get a fairly decent shot off of turn 4. A little better, a little more gap than what we had last time. I'm once again just kind of keeping an eye on there. I make my turn in just a little bit earlier and gradual to cover the inside, because he wasn't alongside. I'm allowed to make that. I was kind of being a little safe before, but let's jump ahead. Lap 10 now of 33. And Dog, who has picked up some wing damage, has fallen back towards us. And that's me asking Mark. In the end, yes, he did in fact have some wing damage. And as you expect, Dog is always going to fight it no matter what. So we are closing on Robin a little bit. We've gotten the gap down to 4.1. You can see just straight line speed-wise, Dog was very quick, using a lot of battery, but so slow through turn 1. Goes all the way off the track on the exit, just trying to maintain the position. And now he's kind of backing me up towards his teammate. He defends to the inside. I swing wider to get kind of the cut back up the hill, as under steering load is the tougher thing. We're getting a good run with the DRS up the inside. Layish on the brakes. We're kind of even side by side. He turns in. We're leaving him plenty of space on the outside. A little bit of contact side by side. He's going to try and fight it back, so I have to burn a lot of battery, because Dog will stick his nose up if there's a shredlet, and I didn't want there to be any chance of him putting a car alongside me, because I knew once we got to the actual turns, the front end downforce loss of that wing would cost him significantly, and now he's even, holding up his teammates. So a couple more laps jumping ahead. Lap 13 on the soft tire. Robin comes into the pit lane, so we're going to gain a position on him there, and now we just start to see what the strategy shakeout is going to be. So we're up into 4th. Robin's into the pits. We're jumping ahead another lap, lap 14, as we were kind of just running in clear air at this phase of the race on the mediums, trying to just turn good laps. Madsta in off of the medium tire himself. So some of the medium tire runners even coming in. He's going medium onto the hard, though. So it will be a different strategy at the end. Of course, Robin will be on the mediums at the end. We'll be on the softs if there are no safety cars, and Mazda will be on the hards. Another lap forward, another car into the pit lane. This time Ipswich in the Red Bull comes in, goes for the hard compound tires, has that 3-second time penalty. So he's got a little bit of work to do if he wants to try and take the race win away. But as you can see, just kind of running in clear air, not a whole lot going at this phase of the race. Div 2 surprisingly clean over the course of this race. Dog did make a pit stop a couple laps after we passed him and was on the medium and setting very fast laps. So he's looking to undercut significantly. And then lastly, Franstuff, leader, into the pit lane for a change of tires onto the hard. So 18 laps into this race, we are kind of last man out, and it does allow us the opportunity to, like Mexico, go ahead and lead a lap on strategy. It is going to cause us some pain. Undercut is fairly strong. You can see Dog doing 19.5s. We're lapping in the 22s. So we were losing probably about 2 seconds a lap to those who went early on the pits, even those on the hard tires. But this point, starting last, I was choosing to be aggressive, make sure I was on the fastest tire possible at the end of the race where it all matters. And it will leave quite a bit of effort for me to catch up, but again, was confident on the race pace. Early in the race was showing decent overtaking work, and it wasn't too hard to get past people. The lap is short enough that even if you spend that whole middle part of the lap behind somebody, you don't lose too much time to a car in clean air. So here I am, lap 18. You can see in my MFD, I had it set for hard tires, now making the change, learning my mistakes from last week, making sure that I had the safety car strategy open to me. But now that we are boxing this lap, going ahead and setting those soft tires, so by the time I come in, we will have them. But you can see the amount of time made up. You lose about 23 seconds, 23, 24 seconds in the pit lane. Robin is now only 12 seconds behind us, so we're going to come out about 12 seconds behind him when he came into the pit lane only 4 seconds ahead of us. So we will have lost about 8 seconds worth of race time in the undercut. Maybe even more than that, but we will be on fresh soft tires when he's been on medium tires for about 10 laps already, almost. Not 10 laps, but about 6-7 laps already. And so we will be able to start making some serious moves. We are going to have to make quite a few overtakes in this one, as Mazda's up there, and then Dog has made some movements on Furry Onyx, or Onyx BMO as he's known now. And we may even have a mediocre Pop-Tart to have to deal with that second Ferrari. Is just kind of looking at the track map, may have an opportunity of following behind it. So here we are into the pit lane, hard on the brakes, making sure not to pick up that time penalty. Limiter engaged, throttled down, and away we go. So as always, make sure we get that purple pit stop. Saves you some time in and out. And this is where last season we had a bit of an incident with Robin coming out of the pit lane. It's very tricky because it's such a high-speed right-hander. There go the two Astons. Sienna Bob in the Red Bull is through. And through goes Mittens for Kins. So we are going to have a clean exit. We're not going to be side by side with anybody. So we do have the opportunity to kind of bring the tires in a little bit more gently. But we are setting off after him now. Lap 21 of 33. Took me 2 laps to make up the difference. But, or a lap and a half rather. But here we are on the gearbox of Mittens for Kittens. Onyx out there has 11 seconds of time penalty. So he's had a bit of a nightmare. But you can see the gap on track as we come out of the final corner. Robin and Mazda into turn 1. So we're basically the entire pit straight behind them at the moment. 2.9 seconds to Onyx, 3.7 to Sienna Bob, but easily clear of Mittens through the first corner. You see just the grip difference, especially when we come through turn 3 here. Just how much time we make up on him. We're already out of the DRS zone, and I'm trying to, as I catch these other cars, save as much battery as possible so I have it available for overtaking. So down into the hairpin we go, and once again you can see already reeling in Onyx by a significant margin. The soft tires very quick. They are going to lose their luster in the final laps of the race, but since we're doing, 14 laps on them, and we expect them to be able to do about 16 to 17, they should be okay. A little wide on that one. It puts us out into the marbles. Not a great braking run through there. Thought it might have cost me the opportunity to be in DRS, but you can see low speed cornering. The soft tires are absolute grip monsters compared to Onyx on his old mediums. You can see we made half a second in 2 low speed corners. That puts us in touching distance with the slipstream. We are going to burn a lot of battery to catch up and make sure we're just nice and close by the time we open up the rear wing and slide right on by. This time we will retake the racing line into turn 1. And always have to be careful in turn 1. It's so easy to run wide and get track limits warnings there. But of course, with the DRS and the overspeed, you can sometimes carry a little too much speed. You need to move your braking point a little bit forward. So down the hill we go. And now we're starting to catch up to Sienna Bob, who we're likely going to lose a little bit of time to him, catching him, because we're going to catch him in an unideal spot, but it'll put us right on his gearbox for the pit straight. A little wide there as we got onto the marbles once again, which are definitely a thing to worry about in F123. Dog is showing very good pace still on those medium tires, so I wasn't really making too much headway on Dog, so I was kind of just seeing who I could catch. It did look, I could tell from the track map at this stage, that I was, at least, even with Dog growing the gap, reeling in the battle between Robin and Madsta, and you can see such a good exit compared to Sienna Bob out of there. We're going to try and do this without too much battery burn. We tuck into the slipstream. He's going to go to the inside. We're going to use some battery, open up the DRS, but we should be able to get by him without too much ado. And you can see down to 2% battery, so much lower battery than I like to run, because the car slows its deployment of the battery once you're below 10%. So I'm essentially, if you let the battery burn below 10%, you're actually costing yourself some horsepower. But we're going to jump ahead as we are catching up to the back of Robin and Madsta. Dog has made his way through the two of them, so those intervening laps just was closing down this gap slowly but surely. But now we've got a really good run on Robin, up for P5, so we're into the top 5 of the race, and now we have Madsta on the hard tires with just 2 laps left to go in this one. So we're looking ahead at maximizing our points, a potential P4. We get a fairly good run. A big moment for Madsta in the exit of the hairpin. We have to back out significantly. If we had swung really wide, we probably could have had the overspeed on the DRS straight, but we had to be very careful. Robin, very late on the brakes, nearly goes into the back of us as we had to brake for Madsta in front of us. But that little mistake from Madsta actually probably cost me my ability to get by him earlier. So now coming up the hill here, there's yellow flags ahead. Dog has had a spin, and Madsta navigates it a little bit better than me, grows the gap by a couple of tenths on that one. So we're going to try and catch up to him in this little middle sector. We've saved some battery. We got 23% on board, but essentially turn 1 is our last best opportunity to go for the move to try and get into what is now a potential podium. We've got a poor run through the penultimate corners there, and it costs us significantly. So that bad run, our bad run picking through Dog's incident, has cost us. We're about as far back as we've been on anybody we've been having a look at into turn 1, just trying to save a little battery, deploy it so it can run out right as we get to the pit straight. He's side by side with us, so we slow down, we go wide. He makes contact, forces us off the circuit, stays alongside, forces us a little wide, and we put a tire on the curb, and that curb just has no grip for braking. So a bit of a lock up there costs us the ability to attack. We now have Robin all over our gearbox, and while he has that 3-second time penalty, still don't want to let him through. Maybe if Madsta makes a mistake, I have a chance. A little deep through turn 5 there, and it's just not quite enough. We kind of used the last of our tire life, and that lockup definitely caused some long-term issues for the end, and just didn't have any real battery left. Trying to push on as much as I can, but It looks like Mazda is going to get to the finish line just ahead of us. It's a pretty short run from the exit of the pits, from the DRS opening to the end. So in the end, we stop kind of pushing so hard. Fran Stuff takes the race win. Ipswich will come home in a nice solid second. And we are just going to make sure we are clear of Robin at the end, as we just kind of had to lift out, slow up a bit, and bring it home safely across the finish line for a P4 finish. Now, we did send off that incident. It's, I'd say, 50-50. Could be a racing incident. I feel like I wasn't afforded space when I was being extra careful to give space for Mazda, but we will see what the stewards have to say. Maybe it's a podium, maybe it's a P4, but in the end, still a good drive back from P11. Fran Stuff takes a second win on the bounce. That puts him very much in control of the championship, although I think he's missing the next race is what I've seen. And we should have the return of the Alpine team, Spen and Gali. So it could be a very interesting championship as it gets down to the end. But in the end, P4, no penalties for us. Robin comes home 5th. Sienna Bob, Pathaman, Mittens, Onyx, and Zhao. Dog ended up parking the car on that final lap after that spin. But since he was over 90%, still classified P11, does keep that fastest lap point away from anybody else in the top 10. So a decent haul of points for us, 12 points, potentially 15, but from a day where we started 11th on the grid, I am not going to complain too much. But thank you guys for joining me once again. We have the break week, so it'll be an extra week before you see round 5, where we head off to Silverstone. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.